Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and fun fact about me, I missed you guys. Did you miss me? Great. It has been a weird few months to be sure, and the drama has been ripe recently. I feel like influencer after influencer is just getting wrecked right now for good reasons. And the influencer I want to talk about right now is of course Hannah Neeleman of Ballerina Farm. And yes, it is pronounced Neeleman, 3 syllables. The E is not silent.
Hannah Neeleman! Hannah Neeleman!
Everyone I've seen talking about this pronounces it Neeleman, which I also did in a past video when I mentioned her, and I'm sure she's used to it, but it is incorrect according to her own mouth. But the pronunciation of her name is the least of the controversies surrounding her right now. If you don't know who Hannah Neeleman is, she is a Mormon, homemaker, millionaire, former ballerina, new egg apron owner, and the latest victim of bitter, loveless cat ladies who hate seeing other women happy, at least according to some people in her comment section. A few weeks ago, a journalist for The Times named Megan Agnew was invited onto their 328-acre farm in Camas, Utah, to do a piece on her, which she titled Meet the Queen of the Tradwives and Her 8 Children. A pretty harmless title, but Hannah did not like what she ended up reading in this article, and neither did her audience of wannabe stay-at-home moms who live vicariously through her life on Instagram. Even though Hannah presents a anyone can do what I do attitude, the truth is her life is quite unattainable. But Hannah believes that she's an example of what women can achieve if they work hard enough. But she leaves out a lot of details of what it actually takes to get to where she is, including marrying into a Harry Potter vault worth of money. The reality of her life is always going to be hidden behind a social media curtain, like any other influencer, and every time that curtain is whipped open, people freak out. But apparently any publicity is good publicity, as Ballerina Farm has gained over 300,000 followers just from this article. She's doing fine, she just got her feelings hurt a little bit, and she's allowed to, she's a human being. But let's talk about what in the HE double hockey sticks happened. This Times article split people into 2 camps. One, Hannah Neeleman is an abused housewife, stuck in her cage just longing to get out and be a ballerina again. Or 2, Hannah Neeleman is being attacked by godless feminists who are just jealous and are trying to tear apart the nuclear family. And I think both sides need to calm down, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So let's talk about what the article said and what the article didn't say. First things first, Megan Agnew never called Hannah Neeleman oppressed. She did use the word oppression at the beginning of her article, asking the question, was this the ultimate act of empowerment, Neeleman doing what she wanted, or the ultimate demonstration of oppression, her tender body encased in spiky sequins? She was referring to the beginning of the year when Hannah walked a beauty pageant just 12 days postpartum, and the conversation that was being had around that time. Megan noted that people went berserk. It's how I first heard of Ballerina Farm, and I went over my thoughts about pageants briefly in my Mormon Tradwives video. I don't think beauty pageants are empowering for any woman. I think they are demeaning and outdated. But Megan never directly answered this question herself and left it open-ended like any good journalist does. She wants the reader to make a determination themselves. After this article exploded, the author wrote a follow-up article where she didn't denounce anything she said, but she tried to clarify her intentions going into this interview. Megan says, Neeleman has become an avatar through which people hotly debate motherhood, womanhood, and freedom to choose either. Before I left to interview her, the main question I had from friends, family, and colleagues was whether it was all true. One of the most watched people on the internet, her children looked chaotic and happy, homeschooled and free range. How did she keep it all together? Was she always so calm? Was it really like that? Spoiler alert, no. No influencer's life is like what you see online. And Megan asks Hannah how she deals with all the criticism, which is a bit ironic considering that Hannah would make a response to this article because of all the criticism. Megan writes, how does she respond to the social media storms? There was one after she said at another pageant that she feels most empowered after she has a baby. There were others when she encouraged the use of natural remedies over traditional medicine, and another when she said Daniel had drop-kicked a cockerel across the yard after it attacked one of their children. Now, I am unaware of said rooster kicking incident, but if I were to make a video explaining every controversy the Neelemans have ever been in, this video would be 10 hours long. It takes one quick search on Reddit to learn that people have been critical of her long long before this article came out, as she has been blogging her life as early as 2013. That's over a decade of material for people to pick apart as they please, and they do. So how does Hannah respond? Daniel is so good about that, she says, looking to her husband. He says you can't lean into what people are saying or the titles people are putting on you. You just have to live your life and shut that out, because if not, it will overtake you. It doesn't have an impact on her at all? I mean, it does. I'll hear things. It's no fun. Like, she pauses, looking up at Daniel, who is now standing behind her. What do you think upsets us the most? She asks him. For whatever reason, I'm kind of numb to it, he says. And that is the crux of this entire article. In asking Hannah a question directly, Hannah, not Daniel, she either defers to her husband or he ends up interrupting anyway. Here's a few more excerpts from the article. Neeleman is the most well-known trad wife despite never having attached herself to the movement or even used the term. How does she feel about it? We were already together doing what we were doing, Daniel replies instead. Our first few years of marriage were really hard. We sacrificed a lot, she says, but we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts, we still do. Do you? I pause and look at her fixedly. Plan pregnancies? No, Daniel says. Daniel! Hannah isn't going to tell you, so I will. Shut the fuck up. Ladies, please do not be afraid to tell a man to stop talking. Did you know that most studies show that men actually talk more than women, and the stereotype that women talk more is just a myth perpetuated by the patriarchy? And anyone repeating this myth has a 100% chance of having a foot shoved up their ass. But Megan, being the professional that she is, says it more delicately. She writes, I can't, it seems, get an answer out of Neeleman without her being corrected, interrupted, or answered for by either her husband or a child. Usually I am doing battle with steely Hollywood publicists. Today I am up against an army of toddlers who all want their mom and a husband who thinks he knows better. That is probably one of the greatest sentences I have ever read, and it perfectly summarizes the big Mormon family experience for me. Let's talk about her kids for a second. I am the oldest of 6 kids, so just a few shy of Hannah's 8. Chaos is to be expected in any large family unit, and Hannah seems to be the eye of the tornado, the calm of the storm, as her family just spins around her.
Mom and I are getting ready for the day. This is my OG complexion stick.
My OG complexion.
Linden. Still right here. This is a bronzer.
Yeah. So I like tan.
Yeah.
I don't like makeup under my brow.
All the butter fat separates. And what you have left over from the cream is called buttermilk. And it's so good. It doesn't taste like, it's not cultured buttermilk that you're used to from the store.
Anyone that's had even one small child knows that they can produce a noise that breaks the sound barrier, so 8 of them running around screaming has probably done a number on her eardrums. But Megan reiterates that she is just as calm in real life as she appears online. Part of this, in my opinion, is that she has discovered the trick that most Mormon moms do, which is that the more kids you have, eventually the oldest ones take care of the younger ones, which lessens your burden as a parent. And as someone who was the oldest one taking care of the younger ones at a very young age, I'm here to tell you it's a bad idea. Putting adult responsibilities on a kid is really harmful to their mental health and sense of self. They are still children themselves, but now they are expected to mature quicker and become co-parents to their siblings, which is fucked up. Hi, I know my mom is watching this, and before I get a text from her, no, I did not have a horrible childhood. What I'm trying to say is that when you are one of the oldest siblings, even if your mom is in the house or your dad is in the house, you kind of are expected to look after them. Say the parents are busy doing something. It's just expected, even if it's not spoken. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? My mom did not abandon us for days and I was left cooking and cleaning. I'm just talking about the general responsibility that the oldest siblings feel when their parents have a lot of kids. I personally felt like I had to be the adult a lot of the times, and I was 10 or 8, and I just didn't like that feeling. So that's all. Love you, Mommy. Bye. So I think the reason she manages looking after 8 kids is because half of her job is being done for her by her other kids. Megan witnessed this as well, saying, the children appear to look after each other quite well too. There are so many that they seem to have become an almost self-sustaining entity. Still, Daniel says, Neeleman sometimes gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week. So even after all of that, she still can't handle her workload according to her husband. And Megan notes that they do not have a nanny, which I called bullshit on in my last video, and I was half right. It turns out she does hire a cleaner and they have a babysitter for date nights. And also, Hannah is not the one exclusively homeschooling her children either, as they had a teacher with the kids during this interview. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is not what she presents on social media. She never talks about the team she has behind her because she wants to give the impression that she does it all herself, which is just physically impossible. Also, the whole "we are bootstrapping farmers just like you" cosplay goes further than just Hannah, as on their Ballerina farm website, there is not a single word about who else works for them. No meet the team page, which is pretty normal for businesses these days. It's just them, their kids, and Jesus milking the cows. And the new state-of-the-art milking system that they got for their new dairy farm. Who's gonna tell them that's not homesteading anymore? I don't know if it ever counted as homesteading when you have a fat bank account to back you up in case it goes left. And Megan wrote in her article that the reason they don't hire a nanny is because, quote, Daniel didn't want one. The fuck did the $400 million inheritance baby just say? Daniel Neeleman is an heir to his father, David Neeleman's $500 million JetBlue fortune. And they purchased the farm they currently live on for $2.75 million. They could hire a different nanny for every day of the week they wanted and not worry about putting food on the table. But God forbid they have another person interacting with their children lest they become corrupted by the outside world, just so that Hannah can get enough sleep at night. What a selfish bitch. So not only did Megan observe Daniel being a patriarchal douchebag with her own 2 eyeballs, Hannah and Daniel also happily give their dating backstory, which to any normal person reads like a horror film. She said no to going on a date with him for 6 months, and instead of respecting her decision, he stalked her onto an airplane. Remember how his daddy owned JetBlue? He got a seat right next to her, forcing her into a confined space after she had already told him no for many, many months. If that happened to me, I would cry. I can't imagine seeing a guy I had rejected showing up on my flight. I would literally call security because that is not romantic. That's the beginning of a restraining order. Oh no, but it's fine because they're happy and they're in love. No, it's not fine. That is not normal behavior. That is not consensual. And that pattern of manipulation and coercion from Daniel continues when she finally agrees to date him, doesn't want to get married yet, and he says, quote, "That's not gonna work. We've got to get married now." So Megan is seeing and hearing all of this, Daniel constantly talking over her, him making major life decisions for her, and she comes to the natural conclusion that he sucks. But again, she words it nicer than that because she is a professional. But I ain't a professional and Daniel can suck my dick. So once this article came out, people began digging up other evidence that Daniel is not a great husband. One being the birthday present video. Just watch.
It was my birthday present from Daniel. Hoping their tickets to Greece.
Where's it from?
I don't know, the boys took it off.
I took it off.
It's from Ukraine.
So, plane tickets? Ooh, a hat I can wear in Greece.
It's not a hat.
It's not.
Oh, my apron!
Eggs in it.
It's great. They can gather eggs.
So cute. It's really cute. It's a cute one.
Yeah, that's the best. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Not for a long time.
An avocado! Thanks! She repeats like 3 times that she would like tickets to Greece, and it ends up being an unwrapped egg apron, which go for around $20 on Etsy. We all know he surely could afford plane tickets. And I do think the Greece comments were like a half joke from her, but imagine if he actually got her those tickets, she would probably start sobbing with relief. And people point out the fact that he said "you're welcome" before she ever said thank you. The entire video is just awkward as hell, and it's a bad birthday gift, Daniel. Here, honey, here's a way of doing your chores faster so that maybe you'll spend 3 days in bed and not 7. Also, Daniel's just dumb as hell. Megan asks him what their stance on terminating pregnancies is, and he says the church is more lenient than a lot of the United States, which is just not true. But he says, quote, "And that's probably why the church tells you don't have sexual relations, get married. Because if not, you might have a kid that you regret having and all of a sudden you get an abortion and that's not good." Does Daniel think married people don't get abortions? Methinks a lot of his favorite Republican senators are very grateful that their mistresses got abortions, but like, he's just a moron who got all of his education on women's bodies from his church. And I'll bet you $1,000 this dude stuck it in her belly button on their honeymoon. Anyways, another dum-dum quote from him is actually from Hannah's old blog, the We Took the Train one. It's still up, you can go read it. And then Megan found this blog, and then she quoted this in her follow-up article. So Hannah said that he was a firm believer that men make stuff work and women beautify. What do you mean? Like, he's always been this way. And there's a reason he's not at the forefront of Hannah's Instagram, because he says stupid shit like this. And it's not about the egg apron, it's not about Daniel's annoying comments, it's not about how they met, it's everything that adds up that paints a very familiar picture for women who have been in Hannah's situation before. But she doesn't see it that way. She sees it as an unwarranted attack. And I can understand why she's upset about this. If a person who had interviewed me started taking shots at my husband, I would also get defensive. But I would also come with receipts. Point by point, I would dismantle whatever bullshit I needed to. But the problem with her rebuttal is it's just like, nuh-uh, that's not true. So, like, she doesn't actually have a counter argument, which leads me to believe that she is just used to his behavior at this point and can no longer see the red flags. And she just doesn't really care. Let's watch her response.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a reporter come into our home to learn more about our family and business. We thought the interview went really well, very similar to the dozens of interviews we had done in recent memory. We were taken back, however, when we saw the printed article, which shocked us and shocked the world by being an attack on our family and my marriage, portraying me as oppressed, with my husband being the culprit. This couldn't be further from the truth. Nothing we said in the interview implied this conclusion, which leads me to believe the angle taken was predetermined. For Daniel and I, our priority in life is God and family. Everything else comes second. The greatest day of my life was when Daniel and I were married 13 years ago. Together we have built a business from scratch. We've brought 8 children into this world and have prioritized our marriage all along the way. We are co-parents, co-CEOs, co-diaper changers, kitchen cleaners, and decision makers. We are one. And I love him more today than I did 13 years ago. We have many dreams still to accomplish. We aren't done having babies. We are excited for our new farm store to open, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for the rest of it. But for now, I'm doing what I love most, being a mother, wife, a businesswoman, a farmer, a lover of...
So, a few things. She said, "I'm not oppressed. I love my husband." But those things are not mutually exclusive. You can be both. No one said she didn't love her husband. They said, "Your husband treats you like shit, and you're putting up with it." Another thing in the article Megan points out is that her ballet studio, the one thing she had that was just hers, was converted into the kids' schoolroom. And people thought the reason she filmed in her home gym was to show, like, see, I do have a space of my own. But it's not like her own gym. It's also her husband's gym and apparently her small toddler's gym, who was seen swinging on the equipment, which TikTok noted was a dangerous activity. And some people weren't happy that she was also holding her newborn while driving a tractor. There's a whole other ongoing conversation about her kids' safety and how she just kind of lets them run around, but I am not here to mom shame, I am here to husband shame. And her claim that they are co-CEOs is just like factually untrue. Jenny on TikTok, who is a mutual of mine and was also in an abusive Mormon marriage, pointed out that Daniel's name is the only one on the business documents.
You guys, this is a really big deal. Hannah Neeleman is not the owner of Ballerina Farm. Here's the Utah LLC report. I pulled it this morning, and you'll see right here, the farm is owned by Daniel. Hannah's name is nowhere in any of these documents. Now, Hannah may have other ownership options not listed on the filing that are part of their internal operating agreement. But Daniel right here, Daniel is the owner of Ballerina Farm.
I'm not saying that she doesn't do stuff for the business, but on paper, she is not a co-CEO. It's technically Daniel's business, and she is more the face of the brand, which is something that Megan also points out in her article. So if that response feels like a whole lot of nothing to you, that's generally her response to these type of questions. In the follow-up article, Megan said, "When I asked her about how she felt about the anger of other mothers who said she only showed the good parts of motherhood rather than the struggles, she was bright and sweet in her response. I feel like there's so much joy in making a beautiful meal for your family. It's very satisfying, especially when you have had some part in growing or sourcing the food that you have a connection to," she told me, "and hopefully I'm inspiring women to do that." That didn't answer the question. So what are the struggles of being a mom? I love making meals for my family. It's so pleasant. Oh, okay, I didn't ask about cooking. Are there times when being a mom isn't pleasant? No, never. I love my family. Like, why doesn't she just admit that it's hard sometimes and that she has a lot of help? Here is her trying to answer a similar question.
So one of the questions is how do you manage it all, right? How do you hold the title and also run a business and motherhood and have a platform on social media? And when I first started thinking about running in a Mrs. pageant, I knew that I was going to have a platform that was going to go alongside my lifestyle. And so that's when we landed on Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food, because it was something that I was already advocating. And I think a lot of the misses that I run into is they're like, I just don't have time to do a pageant. Like, I'm juggling so many other things. In fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine about pageants and encouraging her to compete. And she was like, I just have so much on my plate right now. I don't know what I would do for my platform. She's like, I just got promoted to the board of this outreach program in ballet where I'm helping all these inner city kids, experience dance for the first time. And I was like, well, that is an amazing platform. Like, that, do something that you're already doing, that you're passionate about, that's going to flow well with your lifestyle, because it really is hard to add another thing on top of what you're doing. And so what is something that you're doing, that you're passionate about, that you love, and that you feel like could just flow into your life? Like, that's your platform.
Like, what is she talking about? She keeps giving answers like she was asked a completely different question. How do I manage it all? So my friend wants to do a pageant and I told her to pick something she's passionate about. It feels like either I'm high or she is. If anything, she's just delirious from exhaustion and the dissociation is kicking in. I also found this clip of both Hannah and Daniel from their YouTube channel attempting to answer a question and completely sidestepping it. It's just so annoying that both of them do this. Now, as you watch them answer, keep in mind the question is, how involved are your parents with the farm? That is the question, and yet they somehow forget to answer it.
We tell this to people that ask all the time, but, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad, all his siblings, they all have their own businesses, and I just grew up thinking like that's what you did. You grew up, you got married, and then when you're ready to get serious about life, like, you buckled down and you started your business. What is your business? Who cares? What is it? I don't know, but I just thought that's what grown-ups did. And as I'm older now, I realize like that's not the case. Not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone can be or wants to be. But that's just how I was raised. And then when I met Hannah, she kind of grew up, her family's also entrepreneurial. All of her brothers have their own businesses. Her family has their own small flower shop. Like, she grew up in a small business. And the only difference was, like, her parents worked together, mine didn't. And so that's what we kind of combined is, mom and dad working together. But we both knew we wanted to have our own business. We didn't want to work for someone else.
Yeah, in fact, when we were dating, like, a lot of, my acquaintances or peers that I was dancing with were like, oh, is he going to go work for his dad at the airline? And, like, that never was a thing. Like, I was like, no. And Daniel was like, no, like, I got to go
do my own.
I got to go pave my own path. And it took us a little bit to find out what your path is. And we knew that going into it. Like, we watched our brothers and our parents, like, you don't hit jackpot first time. Like we spent time working abroad. Daniel was working security. I taught dance at the university. Like there was things that we were doing and we just somehow fell upon farming.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
It's like watching Blake Lively answer a question about what her new movie's about. Like, are your parents involved with the farm or not? And they're like, yeah, so our family is a bunch of entrepreneurs, and when we started our farm, it was really hard. It's like, people want to know if your daddy bought your farm, Daniel. And them not answering it makes me think that they did, or that they had a huge hand in giving them that $3 million they needed to purchase it. And I know that mortgages are a thing, I'm not stupid, but you can't just get a $3 million loan out of nowhere. So yeah, I think his parents had something to do with it, and I think they're being weird about it. Just answer the damn question! And although Megan did take many shots at Daniel in this article, I think she was just seeing the tip of the iceberg to what the real issue is lying underneath, which in my opinion is their Mormon religion. If you are new here, I was Mormon for over 30 years and I know a little bit about indoctrination. I don't think Daniel forced her into this lifestyle. I think it was ingrained in her since birth due to the teachings of the Mormon church. Excuse me, I don't think that, I know that. If your entire life you were being told that being a mom is your purpose on earth, that it is the greatest thing you will ever do as a woman, and if you don't want to be a mom, you are choosing the devil, how much of a choice do you really have? The Mormon church deeply discourages women from pursuing a career, or if you do, just make sure you don't work too much and that having kids is your priority. So even though Hannah says it was her choice to give up being a ballerina to pursue having a family, I don't entirely agree with that due to the deep conditioning from her religion that shames women who choose anything other than being a homemaker. One thing I did appreciate that Hannah said in this interview is that she doesn't completely identify as a traditional woman. Hannah says, because we are traditional in the sense that it's a man and a woman, love that passive homophobia right there. We have children, but I do feel like we're paving a lot of paths that haven't been paved before. That is the biggest paradox. In selling the life of a stay-at-home mother, Neeleman and the other trad wives have created high-earning jobs. They are being paid to act out a fantasy. I'm glad that she admitted she is somewhere in the middle because she is so involved with running a business and that is not traditional. And like Megan pointed out is the irony of any online trad wife content creator, but she doesn't identify as a trad wife. That was a label that was put on her by the internet. Okay, I actually want to run that back a little bit. There was a quote where Hannah did let it slip that she does have a little bit of an agenda, and that's okay. She is allowed to have a strong opinion. She is allowed to have goals with her social media presence, right? But this whole, oh, I'm 50-50 traditional and modern, it's just not true. I'd say it's more 75-25, and here's my evidence. One is a quote that she directly gives Megan when she's talking about how there's so much joy in making a meal for your family, and she said, quote, hopefully I'm inspiring women to do that. She didn't say, hopefully I'm inspiring people to do that or parents to do that. She wants other women to see her cooking for her family and hopes that they will do that. Like, that is clearly not being neutral. That is not someone who is just sharing their life on the internet. That is someone who believes it is women's place to be in the home. It is a woman's place to make the meals for your family, and that's fine. Just say that. I think she's a lot more conservative than people realize, and that's something that this article talked about. And then there was this little nugget, which is back to the Q&A between her and Daniel, when Daniel says out of his own mouth that she takes care of the kids more than he does.
Especially with parenting, I mean, we're very 50-50. Hannah does more. I do as much as I can.
Hannah does more. Hannah does more.
You know, I try to take care of the kids, but that's a woman's job, and a man's gotta get his hands dirty. Like, I just feel like we're all so aware that Daniel is more hands-on with the business and she's more hands-on with the kids, and that's fine, but they just swear up and down that's not true, until sometimes they let it slip that that is true. Okay, thank you. End scene. And Daniel's own father tweeted that the journalist was just spreading lies about her family. Daniel's father is David Neeleman, founder of JetBlue, Trump supporter, and on his third marriage. I just find it hilarious when Mormons talk about the sanctity of marriage when they actually don't give a shit. The problem is, as a journalist, you can't just pull quotes out of your ass. That is a defamation lawsuit waiting to happen. But people persist that she was just making things up. And an article came out from Evie magazine calling the Ballerina farm Farm Times interview Dishonest Journalism. It is extremely relevant to note that Evie is a overtly anti-feminist magazine that the Rolling Stone calls the Cosmo for the alt-right. And the misinformed fear-mongering articles I see on their front page seem to support this claim. Evie says, a newly released audio recording suggests that the article distorted the reality of the Neelemans' relationship. So this audio is actually from the Times podcast themselves. It's not like a secretly leaked audio. The only thing that Evie gets right is that the quote from Hannah was not put in the article, but what they are wrong about is this quote changing anything that the author wrote. Let's listen.
And Daniel was like, if you want to dance, like, go dance, like we were open to anything, but I knew deep down that I wanted to raise my babies,
Yep. That's it. Hannah saying, Daniel said she could dance if she wanted to dance. Again, centering her husband at the center of her decision-making process. But the article goes on to say, unlike what the audience had initially believed, Hannah's husband allowed her to continue with ballet. It is incredible that in a piece where they are trying to defend Hannah and say that there is no power imbalance in her relationship, they say, her husband allowed her to do ballet. Amazing. First of all, your husband shouldn't have to allow you to do fucking anything. Secondly, yes, Megan Agnew had a very strong opinion after observing them in their home for 4 hours, but she never explicitly said that he was the reason she stopped doing ballet. Hannah said that she stopped doing it in order to have kids. The Times article reads, was this what she always wanted? I ask when we get a moment alone while Daniel checks on the animals. No, she says. I was like, she pauses. My goal was New York City. I left home at 17 and I was so excited to get there. I just loved that energy and I was going to be a ballerina. I was a good ballerina. She pauses again. But I knew that when I started to have kids, my life would start to look different. And then she asks Daniel the same question. Was this what he always wanted? I ask him when he walks back over. Yes, he says. I expected Hannah to be more at home with the kids, but she said, I watched my parents working together, so whatever we do, we got to do it together. She's not putting words in their mouths. These are direct quotes. She asked them both if this is the life they always wanted. Hannah said no. Daniel said yes, except he wanted her to be even more of a housewife than she already is, which is an insane thing to say. Megan did not have to paint a picture when they were holding the damn paintbrush. I feel like my stance on this whole thing is that everyone needs to calm down. She is not being held prisoner, and this is not a hit piece commissioned by transgender furries to destroy the children. I think there's a conversation being had here about the tradwife movement in general, and she just happens to be the center of it because she has 10 million followers. She has put her life out there for everyone to see, catered it to exactly how she wants them to see it, and the second someone steps foot in her home and points out the discrepancies to her, she doesn't like that. And no influencer is going to showcase every single aspect of their lives. I don't think that's healthy, but nothing about her response or anyone else's refutes the claims being made in the article. Okay, one last defense of my girl Megan Agnew, who is the author of this article. In her follow-up article, she said, quote, in recent days there has been criticism that I, a childless, unmarried woman, didn't understand that this is the reality of having 8 children, all homeschooled and with no childcare. But I felt the exact opposite when I was there. It made me understand exactly how it was to be a woman with 8 children and no childcare. Demanding and rewarding and gloriously intimate and difficult to find a space to speak. Just all the attacks on Megan are so unwarranted. And yes, I am a childless cat lady. I no longer take offense to that term because you are not saying anything offensive. I don't have kids. I have a cat, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that rhymed. It's just so stupid. People think like having kids makes you a better person on principle, when Megan also points out that they're using her kids on the internet. And I thought we didn't like that. I thought we didn't like people who exploited their children, but apparently it's okay when a millionaire does it. Megan says, quote, but it was also a life of contradictions. Children not allowed screens, but who are reality TV characters online for millions. A stay-at-home mother who has made a career out of being so. An analog, old-fashioned farm only working because it is underwritten by social media cash. Are you fracking kidding me that the kids aren't allowed screens and that is such a big part of their business is her creating content on her phone. I think not allowing your kids any screens is going to make them technologically illiterate. Like, what if one of them wants to be an app developer someday, but when they're 18 and they use a computer for the first time, they don't know what they're doing? I'm not saying everyone should be an iPad baby. I just think there's moderations to everything. Their kids are so blissfully unaware of the world around them, and in my opinion, that could do them harm in the future, especially really not knowing that they are online without their consent for 10 million people every day. There really needs to be more laws around this. It is quite insane that you can make money around filming your children and they have no say in that whatsoever. And to their credit, they don't do the whole like, oh, my daughter just got her first period YouTube video crap, but we know all of her kids' names, we know all of their faces. Stop exploiting your children on the internet, you big weirdos. I don't dislike Hannah personality-wise. She seems sweet. We have absolutely nothing in common, but I don't wish ill upon her. I wish she was a little bit more honest about her life. I think she needs to recognize that not everyone can do what she does because of her wealth. And does she seem happy? Yeah, of course she seems happy. But how happy would she be if she actually married a poor farmer? And how successful would their business be? But that's just my opinion, and you really never know anybody on the internet. Do you like my shirt? Daddy, I love him. I thought it was apropos for this video. I love you guys. I missed you guys. Let me know in the comments below what else you've been wanting me to talk about. It doesn't have to be super new. Anything that's happened in the past few months. I have some ideas, but I want to make you guys happy because that's what makes me happy. Say bye to Trixie and Rexy. And say goodbye to Lily. You won't be in the video? You just want to yell at me? Talk to you guys later. Bye.